Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be responding to questions that came in on a post that I made a while ago on the YouTube community page about problems you're having with ear training, or sort of your most important questions with ear training, which I received a bunch. I'm going to start with sort of the beginner and overview questions, move through like melodic stuff and then into chord stuff at the end. I'm going to try to read out the questions as well because I think it gives better context and you also may resonate with some of the things that other people are asking about, which can be helpful. Oh, and I want to mention that I have an ear training app coming out, the first ear training app coming out, which is called Sonofield Ear Trainer, and it will be a dronal scale degree ear trainer, unlike anything that is out right now that I feel is the best way to basically train this outside of actually playing your instrument, if you want to just focus on this, and all sorts of interesting stuff going on there. So just look below in the description or in the pinned comment for a link where you can sign up for a newsletter and you'll be informed when that app is available, because I think you're really going to dig it. All right, so first up, I've put 3 questions together. The first is, what is a good roadmap to achieving a competent ear? Secondly, what should be the ear training practice routine for a beginner? And where to start, how to align the results of training with music theory if you have no understanding of it. So first of all, before you get into the types of ear training that I've been talking about on the channel, which could be melodic stuff, scale degrees and intervals, chords and progressions, all this, there's some basic foundational abilities that you're going to want to cultivate if you don't have already. And this has to do with essentially being able to match pitches in various ways with your voice and your instrument, so that if you hear a melody sung or played on an instrument, can you sing along with the melody, first of all? And actually like sing those pitches. It doesn't have to be in the same octave, but match them. Can you hear a note played or sung and sing the same note back? Can you hear a note played or sung and find it on your instrument, just a single pitch? Can you sing a random pitch and find it on the instrument? Can you play a random pitch on your instrument and then be able to sing the same pitch? If you can't do these kinds of things yet, this is where you need to start, because so much of ear training has to do with this connection between hearing, inner ear audiation, musical inner imagination, and production from your voice or your instrument. And without that skill of being able to match things and know that you got it right, it's going to be difficult to do the rest of the stuff because it sort of builds upon this. And this is always a fallback, so to speak, that you're going to be using when transcribing, when doing anything, that if you're hearing something that you don't know how to recognize or you don't recognize immediately, you're going to need to find it on the instrument or sing it, or you need to in some way be able to match what you're hearing. If you're unable to do that, you're going to be at a loss for what to do. So that's where to start. If you haven't done that, if you're not able to do that kind of thing yet, that's something you need to work on. And it's very simple to work on. Just sing with music. Just play music you like and sing with it. When you hear a pitch, try to sing the same pitch. Play notes on your keyboard, on your guitar, on your whatever, sing it. Sing a note, try to find it. Very simple things like this, translating pitches that are heard into pitches that are produced, into pitches that are played. It's not totally essential that you be able to produce, and we're not saying sing well, not even saying sing perfectly steady, but roughly be able to sing the pitch. Not being able to do that is going to make things very difficult, honestly, later on. It's really worth doing. So that's where to begin. So then we have this question of a roadmap to achieving a competent ear. So the thing with ear training is there are many paths that can be progressed simultaneously. And they don't necessarily need to go in some specific order, but foundationally we have what I just talked about, plus tonic recognition. And if you haven't seen my video called The Secret of Ear Training, it's really worth you seeing that, because it talks about tonic recognition and how important that is, because so much of what goes on in real ear training situations, I don't know what the word is, transcribing, playing real music by ear, is to do with feeling the tonic, feeling the key center. And this is something that you actually already do if you enjoy music at all, or else music wouldn't sound good to you. It's a matter of recognizing that you're already doing it, that your ear already knows what the tonic is, or else music wouldn't sound the way it does. Every note and every chord and everything sounds the specific way, feels the specific way that it does because of its relationship to a tonic. So if your ear didn't already perceive that relationship, you wouldn't be experiencing music in a pleasurable, interesting way like that. So that's very foundational, and you should check out the video that I have on that if you're interested. From there, there's these sort of parallel pathways, one of which being melodic stuff, which has to do with scale degrees, like I talk about on the channel, as well as melodic intervals. And both are very useful, though I would certainly put scale degree recognition above or as being more important. But that's not to say that you shouldn't do any melodic interval training, because they both go hand in hand. And in a real music scenario, as I probably repeat myself ad nauseum, everything gets used and there's no hierarchy of what to use when. It just happens. Everything you've practiced comes into play, and whatever is required is what you will use to do it, basically. Perhaps you hear a scale degree and, oh, that sounds like 5. And then suddenly you know the next interval you instinctively recognize as being a third higher. And then maybe your mind calculates, oh, so if that was 5, that must be 7. Oh yeah, I can hear that it's 7, right? And then that's 1, and so on. These things just mix like crazy in the moment. There's not a clear, not for me, a clear separation, nor any need to have a clear separation, because I don't care actually what the technique is. The technique is about achieving the result, and the result is about knowing what I'm hearing. That's all that I actually care about, knowing what I'm imagining or what I'm hearing externally. How I achieve that result, I'm just going to use whatever's best, period. And for me, what's best is this spontaneous mixing of these things. So that's one path, is the melodic stuff. Second path, and perhaps I should say the melodic stuff, there's a bridge between it and the harmonic stuff, the chord stuff, which is bass lines, because bass lines are melodic, and hearing bass lines is very important, and those bass notes have the feeling states of the melodic scale degrees that you train through the melodic training with drones and all this. They're present in the bass line, in the bass notes that you hear, but of course the bass notes are also the foundation of the harmony. So this is this parallel path of harmony of chords and chord progressions. Now, within the chords and chord progressions area, you have sort of chord qualities, which is to do with major, minor, suspended, 9s, 11s, and 13s, inversions, all of this stuff, as well as you have progressions, which has to do with chord positions, chord relationships, chord functions, someone might call them. That's the number system. Am I hearing, I know it's a major chord, but is it 1, 4, or 5 in a major key? Or is it non-diatonic? Is it a flat 6? Is it a flat 2? This kind of thing. So the combination of chord quality and chord position comes together to be able to recognize chord progressions on the fly. Combined with hearing bass lines and the scale degree, if there comes to be a chord you don't immediately recognize, you might recognize the bass note and say, well, I know that's 6 is in the bass, 6 of the key. 6 of the key is normally minor. Maybe that's a minor chord. It doesn't sound like a minor, so maybe it's non-diatonic. And this process kind of goes like this. Again, it's an everything. It's not a clear delineated thing. It's a everything mixes. But to put it simply, we have melodic stuff, we have harmonic stuff, which has to do with positions as well as chord qualities, and then bass lines perhaps could be said to be a bridge between them. Now, as far as like transcribing music and jamming and all that, primarily that's the stuff that you need. But there's all sorts of other ear training that can be done, of course, and it depends on what else you're doing in music, whether you need to do production and mixing related ear training, whether you need to do instrument separation, like if you are listening to music, can you tell what instruments are playing and how many there are and the ways that they're being layered and various things like this. Obviously, you can learn to pull apart any aspect of music. It's a matter of being conscious that you can and desiring to do it. Through the desire to do it, which means you have a reason, you have some purpose, there's something that you feel you need to be able to do to achieve something that you can't do right now. That will create a motivation, and that desire will direct your mind, your ear, towards creating little chunks out of aspects of music. Because of course, music comes to us as a whole, not as individual little bits. The individual little bits are broken up in the mind. They're a product of the training. They're a way of chunking, artificially in a certain sense, chunking aspects of the music together that you learn to do through directing your attention towards those, to being aware that you can do it and then attempting to do it repeatedly, and your mind starts to figure out how to break that stuff up. The last part of this set of 3 questions was how to align the results of training with music theory if you had no understanding of it. As far as I'm concerned, you do need some understanding of the conceptual side of music theory. It's not that you need it. You can get away, so to speak, with having no theoretical understanding and still being able to learn stuff by ear and all this. It's just that you will do it through some other means. You have some other system. You'll be mapping shapes on your instrument, for instance. There has to be some connection, right? Something you're mapping it to, because the feeling states of music themselves are what they are, but that feeling state needs to be mapped to some mental thing so that you can interface between either your instrument and the feeling states, or ideas and the feeling states. Or else there isn't anything to do with ear training, because you're already perceiving the feelings themselves, right? It's about translating those into something so that you can make use of them, repeat them, compose with them, whatever. So having some music theory background is pretty essential, in my opinion, at least the basics of understanding keys, scales, chords, number system, so on. These are like labels through which you can pin the feeling states of music experience onto or intermingle them with, so that when one is experienced, the other comes to mind, and vice versa. And this then can be translated to an instrument, to your DAW, if you're writing in a DAW, in a jamming situation, speaking to other musicians, thinking about music. We need some secondary language, basically, or at least I do, to be able to work in with this stuff. So it's worth understanding the basics of music theory, no doubt, if you're interested in ear training. So the next sort of beginner question is, how should I approach transcription as a beginner who can barely identify the tonic center of a song? Also, with me practicing guitar and piano every day, should I do it with both instruments or just one? Transcription as a beginner is tough. Transcription's tough, actually, in general. But transcribing melodies is the first thing to do. Can you figure out a melody by ear? And just by using anything, not trying to limit yourself to just saying, I have to do it with just hearing scale degree feelings. Just do whatever. If that means plodding around on your instrument until you figure it out, cool. The question is, can you do it at all? Then when it comes to doing chords, as a beginner, if you've not spent time working with tonic recognition, chord position, and chord quality, the only thing you can really do is listen for bass notes and listen for top notes, the top notes of each chord. If you can hear bass notes and find them on your instrument, and you can hear top notes, then you basically just start trying stuff. If you can hear the inner notes too, cool, and that will help you. But that is very difficult as a beginner to do usually, maybe unless you have perfect pitch or something. So otherwise, you just kind of have to brute force it. And honestly, even after a lot of practice, you're still going to find yourself having to brute force stuff, because the amount of possibilities in music, the amount of combinations, especially for harmony, is insane. It takes a very long time to get used to and familiar with all the different combinations. And you're still I still come across stuff that I hear and I'm like, I have no idea what that is, And then what do? I have to basically brute force it, because nothing in my vocabulary matches this. At least I don't think. I could be getting tricked by something, which also happens a lot. So then it's a matter of literally playing the thing over and over again and listening to hear what pitches I'm hearing. And then, just like I said in the beginning, matching those pitches with my voice, finding it on the instrument, and then eventually piecing together what that is. Once I can see it, say, okay, it's blah, 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 blah. And then I file that away, in my mind within my sort of system of whatever I'm trying to file, harmonic stuff or whatever, and give it a name, play it a few times, and then I usually will try to write something with it, not something serious, a full song, just write some progressions that use it and try to understand what is this sound, so that the next time I hear it, it becomes more clear. So moving on to tonic recognition. I don't perfectly understand where our mind places the tonic when individual notes are played, and does the tonic change when we play notes outside the major scale? How does it change? Shouldn't the tonic be changing constantly throughout a sequence if we don't stick to just the notes in a major scale? Okay, so basically what happens is your ear, for lack of a better term, is going through a process of factoring, let's say, where given certain input, certain frequencies and relationships between them, your mind is going to figure out what is the simplest explanation for the given relationships that I'm hearing. And every new note that comes in is another piece of the puzzle and may reinforce or break what the current assumption is. It's just the same as we experience when we're seeing, like, imagine you were to, I was thinking back to early days of the internet, when, I don't know if you were alive at that time, when things were loading so slowly, just like line by line. And it's like a picture I'm talking about. And as you're watching the picture unfold, you're looking, thinking like, oh, maybe it's a tree. Oh, wait, no, it's it's like this. And every little piece of information that comes in, you can feel your mind just like guessing. New information comes in and it removes possibilities and puts in new possibilities. Or it's like when you're trying to see something in the dark, and you're too far from it and you're looking like, what is it? Is it like a snake? Or no, maybe it's a branch. Maybe, as you get closer and it's like this. You need more bits of information. It's just like that with this whole tonic thing. The perceived tonic is automatically generated in your mind based on relationships being shown to you or being perceived in terms of the notes you're hearing. And every time a new note gets added, it is either confirming or rejecting the current assumption of what the tonic is. And the more notes you hear, the more clear it's going to become, unless all the notes are conflicting and you can't generate anything, which has a frustrating feel. This is not something that you have to attempt to do. This just happens automatically. So to the question then, if all the notes are within the same major scale and you have no other harmonic context that's forcing some different tonic, like a mode or something, you'll experience those as being related to the one of that scale, the tonic of that scale. It will just happen. There's nothing you have to do to make that happen, because that is the simplest explanation for all the given notes that are appearing. Now, as notes that are non-diatonic, or in other words, outside of the major scale, are added occasionally, your ear's still going to attempt to keep the same tonic and find an explanation. It's only when enough notes don't conform anymore to the assumption that has already been working that the tonic will switch. And that's a perceivable experience, what we call a key change or a modulation. In a key change, often what happens is, I'm speaking harmonically now, you're hearing a bunch of chords, which is just, a bunch of relationships, frequency relationships, which are all confirming a particular tonic over and over and over and over and over and over. And then comes a pivot chord. The pivot chord is common to both keys, the new one, or the current one and the new one. And from the pivot chord, the chords will start moving as though they're in the new key, not in the old key. You don't know that yet. Your ear doesn't know that yet. But it will, depending on what the progression is, quickly get it, because the new chords will no longer conform to what was going on before. It will be consistently breaking the assumption that was in place. And when enough broken assumptions happen, the ear will give up the old tonic and swap to a new one. And that's the feeling of a key change. It has a perceivable, like, woo, something kind of goes out from underneath you or whatever. So that's basically how it goes. The ear is in a constant state of updating what's going on, both the current relationships of the chord and its root and its inversion and bass note and all that, as well as its broader context of the key you're in, is kind of virtually held together until enough material contradicts that, and then it will give it up and form a new one. And, that's basically how it goes. So shouldn't the tonic be changing constantly throughout the sequence if we don't just stick to the notes of a major scale? It depends. If the other notes that you add into the major scale are played in such a way that it's clear to the ear that this is a parallel mode of the current tonic that you're in, the current scale you're in, as in you've been hearing C major, then you start to hear notes of C minor and C Phrygian and C Dorian and C Mixolydian and so on. The ear will continue to hear C tonic for the most part. There's exceptions to that. But then if you start to play stuff as though you're actually in E major, and certain combinations start to appear in certain orders that do not conform at all to any mode of C, then C will be given up and E will be established, and the perception of a key change will happen. Next question. How do I stay in key and stop recognizing another scale degree, example 4 or 5, as tonic? Generally, this is actually, just as I was saying before, a matter, if the music is actually just staying diatonic and it's not something that's particularly complex, that's just a mind thing. It's not that your ear has it wrong, because of course the music wouldn't sound the way that it does if you weren't experiencing the tonic correctly, so to speak. It's just a matter of repetition. You just have not spent enough time differentiating the feeling states of 4, 5, and 1. Essentially, that's all that it is. Whether you're talking chords or whether you're talking individual scale degrees, it's just a matter of repetition and experience. There's nothing else to it. If you can't tell apart the words of a given language you're trying to learn, but a native speaker can, it's purely because a native speaker has done it more. That's all. That's all that it is with music here too. You just need more experience and it will become clear all on its own, really. The last question for this tonic section is a bit long, but I will just shorten it to say that this person has played music on and off most of their life, but still can't find do or 1 or the tonic in their mind. They need something to help them understand where that is and so on. Then from there they can kind of get going. Again, this is just a matter of experience. Most likely you've been focusing on other aspects of music as opposed to this, and those have been getting trained, and this recognition has not. Again, you are hearing what the tonic is. You can't avoid that. If you're someone that enjoys listening to music because of the way that it feels and sounds and all that, then, and if the music is tonal, then you perceive the tonic. You know, it's just a natural function of our brain given our culture. Now, the difference is in the mind. The difference is in you recognizing that, you being able to generate that. When you're looking at a page and it has a key signature and it's D, and you look at the notes and you see a D there, being able to imagine a tonic feeling. Unless you have perfect pitch, you're not going to imagine the actual pitch D. I'm not going to be able to do that for sure, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to be able to imagine the tonic feeling and place that upon what I see as the note D on the page. The person was talking about sheet music, that's why I'm mentioning this. And then from there, the other notes on the page will become clear as to what they will sound like in relation to that. If you can't do that, it's just because you haven't tried enough. Seriously. It's just a matter of attempting to do that over and over again and being honest and patient with yourself. Attempting, trying, attempting, trying, attempting, trying. Every failure is the path to being able to do it. So just be easy with yourself and know that the ability is already in place. It's just a matter of recognizing. It's a matter of mentally identifying what that tonic feeling is.